Okay, let's just go ahead and dive in. I want to give you a few ground rules before we get started, okay? So, one, I need you to be in the chat because this is going to be a highly interactive session. I'm really going to need your energy and your feedback because I really want to tailor make what I'm going to share today to meet your specific needs, okay? I'm also going to be keeping my eye on the clock to make sure I don't go over time. And I'll also be on Twitter using the hashtag billosummit, okay? So, if you want to share feedback and maybe you're not in the app, you can definitely head on over to Twitter and use the hashtag billosummit. All right. So let's go ahead and start off with our first few questions for you. So what I want you to do right now in the chat is share your answer to this question so I can tailor make the content to you. Okay. So the first question is, what type of business do you have? All right. What type of business or brand do you have? The second question is, what's your number one question about monetizing your audience? Again, this is going to help me answer your questions and give you content that you can literally begin using today. So while I wait for your feedback, all right, on those questions, I'm going to go ahead and share with you why I'm here today and why I'm talking about this topic. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in. So, how it started. I grew up in a very, I want to say, dysfunctional household. I had a lot of adversity. I was faced with many obstacles growing up. And although I was very aware that money would not solve all of my issues, I was also aware that money and making money would allow me to have more opportunities and would allow me to change my situation. And so the pictures I have here on screen are one picture. If you see the picture of me with the apple on my shirt, those who know, you know, this is a picture where my family and I were living in a one-bedroom shelter in Pennsylvania. My mom was also in and out of jail when I was growing up, and so I was raising my younger siblings. My dad passed away a month before I went away to college. So I had a lot of adversity that I was facing, but it was my number one goal to get a degree from college and to also figure out a way to make money and build generational wealth for my family because I knew that the poverty that I was in was really damaging my future, right? Everything that was around me was just it was tough, right? It was very, very challenging. So that's how it started, okay? That's how it started. But let's talk about how branding changed my life. So when I was in grad school, I was in the midst of what I call a quarter life crisis, right? So I followed the well-intentioned advice of my mentors, advisors, and school counselors. I went to school, I got good grades, I got a good job, but I still felt empty. And so at that point in life, I started going to therapy and I began to really take ownership of my story and realizing that I could be the author and the narrator of my story. So without having a degree in tech, without having a technical background, I began to brand myself the way I wanted the world to see me. So I began to tap into my transferable skills. And long story short, a few years after that, I was making a name for myself in Silicon Valley. So I had a chance to work at an amazing company called Asana. I had a chance to work at Facebook. I had a chance to partner and work with companies like IBM, Limebike, Glassdoor, and many more. And I say all that to say that leads me to where we are today. So today I have a book on Amazon. I launched my self-help book last year. I have in a highly growing, I want to say, podcast, Cultivating Her Space. And I've been able to really make that name for myself by monetizing my brand. I was able to leave my job last year at 5 months pregnant and really just pursue my dreams. So let's go ahead and dive in. I see some of your answers here. We have folks that are in drop shipping, we have insurance, hot sauce biz. Awesome, awesome. I love it. So let's go ahead and dive in. What we're going to jump into first is talking about the truth number one when it comes to monetization, and that is that the money is in the data, okay? So in order to monetize your audience, we need to have the correct information, right? How can we sell to our audience if we don't know who they are, what they like, and what behaviors they have, right? When I was in college, one of my favorite professors, Professor Wendell, he did an activity with us that really changed my mind. It rewired my mind as it relates to marketing and monetization. And this is what Professor Wendell said to us. He stood in front of the class and he showed us a pen. And he said, what I want you to do is I want you to sell me this pen. So we're all a bunch of marketing students, maybe a little cocky and arrogant. And we're like, oh, we can do this. We can sell you the pen. So many of us raised our hand and we began to try to sell him the pen. And so, we showed him the pen and we're like, this amazing pen right here, it's magical. This pen can talk to you. It can fly. I mean, it can do all these amazing things and it writes really well. And so as we began to share our feedback about the pen and try to sell him on the pen, he basically told us that we failed the mission. And he said, you had a good try, right? You did well, but you're missing the main concept here. And what I want you to do when you're thinking about selling is I want you to go to your audience and ask them questions, right? You telling me about how amazing the pen is and what you think I want to hear is not going to be helpful for your business or for me. What I want you to do is ask the key questions. So he told us that we needed to ask him about what does he value, right? Where is he at in his journey? What type of pen is he looking for, right? How have other pens failed him in the past? And once we began to collect that market research and learn more about what he needed and where he was at in his journey, we could then sell him the pen, right? So that's really what we're going to talk about today is learning what type of data we can gather from our audience, okay? So let's go ahead and dive into two key points before I show you how this looks in action. So I want you to remember to measure what matters. So repeat after me, measure what matters. You can write it in the chat. You can write it on Twitter as well. Measure what matters, okay? So if there's a data point that you want to collect from your audience, but you don't know how you're going to be able to monetize it or how you'll be able to use it in the future, it probably doesn't matter, right? Next, it's important to remember that you don't need a large audience to monetize, all right? You do not need a large audience to monetize. And without further ado, we're going to dive right into some of the survey questions that I've asked my audience that have allowed my co-host and I to monetize our audience, all right? So if you're ready for, all right, I see you in the chat here. Thank you for the feedback. I'm loving it. Measure what matters. Let's go ahead and dive into question number one. So if you can't see this on screen, I'll go ahead and read it. So question number one in our survey is dream big. You know what we believe, you know that we believe that possibilities are endless. If money were no object, what would you spend your life doing? Now, when you think about this question here, this is a great question that really allows us to get to know our audience on a deeper level, right? And so as you can see some of the feedback here from our audience, some folks want to travel, some folks want to write, someone wants to make cosmetic products. Think about how rich this data is, right? This simple question allows us to gather so much information about our audience, right? Now, question number two, what is your age range? This is another great question that allows us to figure out one, where might we want to market to our audience online, right? So if you have a younger demographic, you might want to use something like, I don't know, Snapchat or TikTok, right? Where if you have an older audience, I'm taking a look at the data here, we have an audience of a lot of folks are in the 25 to 34 range. We might want to use something like LinkedIn, right? So those are just two simple questions that give us so much information about our audience when it comes to marketing and monetizing. Now we're going to take a look at question number three, which is a fun question, right? What do you do for fun? This is another question that will allow us to understand, okay, if I know that my audience, I see a couple folks have photography or photo shoots, right? If I know that that's what they like to do for fun, I might be able to then partner with certain brands that allow me to speak to their needs, right? So maybe I can with a partnership with a photography brand, right? Or a photographer, and I can partner with them and introduce them to my audience. And now we're creating a win-win situation for everyone involved, right? Now let's dive into question number four. This is how would you describe yourself best? And this is where you can learn more about the ethnic makeup or the race of your audience. Again, this can also allow you to partner with specific brands that meet the needs of your audience. My audience in particular, we have a lot of Black women in our audience. And so that allows me to go to Black businesses, maybe some hair care products that Black women enjoy, and I can partner with them and present solutions to my audience that are meaningful to them, right? All right, let's dive into question number five. Where do you live? This is a great question. If you're going to partner with maybe a local business in your area, this will allow you to understand, okay, well, it makes sense for me to partner with a company that's in Brooklyn, New York, right? If you see that a lot of your folks are in Brooklyn, you might want to do that, right? It might make sense for you and your brand. So this is another great data point. And then we're going to take a look at number six, which is what's a big obstacle you're facing in life right now? This question here is a gold mine. Let me see you type gold mine in the chat. Okay, this question is a gold mine because if you take a look at the feedback, right, we have one person says, myself, fear. Someone says, finding myself, self love and confidence, procrastinating and low self confidence. This right here is a gold mine because what we can do as business owners and as folks with brands, we can then swoop in and create a solution to meet our audience's need, right? And I see that someone said that you have like a hot sauce business, right? Let's say that if you pose this question to your audience and they say something about, not having the best food options in their area, or maybe they are, in search of just the perfect hot sauce brand, right? You can then try to cater your offering to meet their needs, correct? All right, let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is, what is the highest degree or level of education you have completed? Now, I like this question in particular because we can then give this data to our potential advertisers or sponsors and let them know what the level of degree is, right, of our audience. And they can then assume how much disposable income folks have when it comes to buying those products. So this is a really great question. You don't want to be, all in folks' business asking them about their income and how much they make, but we can definitely make assumptions based on this data point here. All right. Now, this is only, let's see, we only covered 7 questions here, but there are a lot more questions. So if you want to get access to 45 insightful survey questions, you can connect with me on Instagram at Terri Lomax. Click that link in my bio, and you can click the first option under this week's deals, and that'll give you access to my pitch guide and also to the monetization cheat sheet. All right. All right, all right. I'm going to go back to the chat here. Be sure to also share your feedback. I'm just taking a look at some of the responses here. Okay, we'll maybe dive into some of those in the Q&A as well. Let's go ahead and dive into our next key point, which is personalize your survey. Now, I use survey in air quotes because I personally don't like the term survey. I would much rather prefer a getting to know you questionnaire or something, because surveys sometimes have an icky connotation, right? I love to use Asana Forms or Google Forms for my survey. It really depends on what my goal is here. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at my podcast survey just so you can see the look and feel of the questionnaire survey and kind of see what folks see on the back end. And then we'll talk about how we can create your survey. So if we take a look here, we have a nice branded image at the top of the survey here. And it's not really, it doesn't really give off a survey vibe, right? It's called the Cultivating Her Space Podcast Getting to Know You Check-in. And so we introduce ourselves and then we say, imagine a world where we are interviewing your favorite guests on a regular. We're talking about more topics that can enhance your life, and we're giving you access to free content and gems from world-renowned experts and more. And so when you think about this here, this is very personable, right? It gives them a feel that we're actually talking to them, and it's not like, hey, complete this 5-question survey so you can make my life easier, right? It's very personable. So creating personable surveys is really helpful when it comes to actually getting them completed so that we can collect the data. So what I want to do now is I want to actually make this a bit more interactive. Oh, yes, that's another good question. How did you find me is actually a really great question. I see that feedback in the chat. We want to add more questions, but that is definitely a good question because that'll let you know where should you spend your marketing efforts, right? So what I want to do, anyone that's in the chat, tell me more about your business because I want to actually do a little demo on how to create the survey right now, live and in action. So I'm going to continue to share my screen. I'm just going to hop around a little bit here. And we're going to go into Canva, which is one of my favorite tools. I love Canva because this allows you to easily create graphics and images. And so let me go ahead and scroll down to see we have an insurance company, we have drop shipping. I'm going to use hot sauce though, because hot sauce is just, that's such a fun uh, business. So we're going to go ahead and create a nice little image for our survey that we're going to do in Google Forms. This is a fun image. So whoever has a hot sauce biz, feel free to share your name in the chat so that I can shout you out here. So that image isn't working for us. Let's try another image. Now, sometimes technology just doesn't work for you. It looks like this is not trying to let us be great today, but this image should be kind of carrying over here. It might be the internet connection, who knows? But I don't think we'll be able to actually do this live and in action. But in an ideal world, we will be able to choose some of these images here and they would show up for us on screen. I'm going to refresh and see if that works for us. And if it doesn't, we'll just keep on moving because the show must go on. All right. So I don't think it's going to let us create our hot sauce image, unfortunately, but it's all good. Hey, Rebecca. Oh, great. Okay, Rebecca. So it looks like it's going to allow us to do this. So we're going to choose that first image. And then we're going to pretend that we're creating a beautiful banner, right? We're creating a beautiful banner. We're just going to leave it super simple because the internet's a little slow right now. So we're going to create our banner. The dimensions here for the Google form is 1600 by 400, and it's already preset here. So I'm just going to blow this up a little bit. And we are going to save our nice little hot sauce image here. All right, we're going to save it as a PNG. And once we're able to download that, we're going to download this image. Yeah, revved up. I love it. We're going to download this image and we're going to move on over to Google Forms and we're going to create our questionnaire. Okay, so very simple. Great, our image is downloaded. We're going to create a new form here. Awesome. Oh, can you hear me on your end? Looks like it's frozen. Yep. Okay. Yes, let's stop sharing and share again. All right, so we stopped sharing there. Oh, technology. I'm sorry, my friends, we tried. I will probably have to talk you through it and we won't try to do too much interactivity. Okay, screen is frozen. So I stopped sharing. We're gonna share again. Is that good? Okay, perfect. Perfect. Let's go ahead and share now. And I believe we're good to go. I'm just taking a quick pause. Still loading, okay. Is it okay if I continue to talk? Can folks still hear me if we wait for the slides to load? Okay, yes, you can hear me. Perfect, all right. So what I wanna share, we're not gonna be able to do the nice little walkthrough. No slides? No worries. So the slides are not working, so the show must go on. We're limited on time, so I'm going to talk through some of the points I wanted to share with you, okay? So what I wanted to talk through, one was Canva, creating images in Canva, which is a free resource that I absolutely love, and creating your survey in Google Forms. You saw my survey already, so you can create that in Google Forms. But the great thing is you can place your survey in your email signature, in your link in bio. You can offer folks gift cards if they complete the survey or offer them a free digital product, because getting folks to complete the survey with accurate information is so key to you monetizing that audience, because the more we know about our audience, the better we can serve them. And also the better we can introduce them to the brands and businesses that are going to be suitable to meet their needs. You can also add the survey to your business cards. One of my favorite pro tips is to buy a domain. So let's say that we're going to use, let's see, we're going to use Rebecca for an example. Let's say that Rebecca creates her survey for the hot sauce, right? The yummy, yummy hot sauce. And let's say that Rebecca buys a domain and it's literally rebeccassurvey.com. That makes it a lot easier to point people directly to your survey. So Rebecca, if you want to go ahead and buy that domain, if it's available, rebeccassurvey.com, and add it to all the different places, that'll allow you to easily lead people to that survey. You can even, use that on a podcast. If you're doing an interview on a podcast about your business, you can just tell folks, hey, visit me at rebeccassurvey.com, complete the survey, and I'll give, one lucky winner a $25 gift card or something, so that we can collect that data. Now we're going to move on to our next point here, which is show your brand story. Show your brand story. Now we've talked about getting those great questions. We talked about the surveys, where to place them, all that good stuff. And now that we have that squared away, we want to figure out how to actually showcase this to the brands, right? So we don't want to just tell our story. We want to show them the story. We want to show them, what are people saying about our brand or business, right? Show them the numbers and what that could mean for them. Now, I kind of want to share my screen again, but I don't want to, mess anything up here. So maybe I'll try to share it when we get to the Q&A, which we're going to jump into very shortly. But basically on the next screen, I had a picture of my co-host and I, our press kit. And the press kit has a little bit about our podcast, a bit about our demographics. It has different media features that we have. So we have Forbes, we have Black Enterprise, we have Anchor, Spotify, Hello Beautiful, Parade, a lot of different brands so folks can know that we've been featured in other places. And then we have some special guests that we've had on our podcast. And then we break down our demographics. So we pull data directly from that survey and the relevant data, right? And we put it in our press kit. We also have screenshots of reviews right from iTunes, so that in one little snapshot, they can see if our brand will be a good fit for us to partner with them on. And so we actually just did a partnership with Asana, a project management tool. And so we were able to send this to Asana. They were able to look at the data and see if it met the needs of their audience, and we were able to do a partnership with them. So I think we may be at time here. So feel free to let me know, team, and I can probably try to share, and then we can dive into the Q&A. Yes, a subdomain is a great idea. All right, team. So any specific questions for folks? I can take a look at the chat as well. Okay, I'm going to read off one question. Do we send out these surveys through a newsletter? My answer to that question would be absolutely. You can send it to your newsletter. I like to also be very transparent with my audience and let them know why we're sending the survey. And so, because I gave you examples for our podcast here, we let our listeners know if you complete the survey, it'll allow us to better serve you. So you get more exciting content that meets your needs, right? So let folks know why you want them to complete the survey. Maybe you're creating a new product line and you want to make sure that this is catered to meet their needs, right? Let them know. So I would say absolutely send out the survey in your newsletter. Oh, great. Awesome. And this is an example of the press kit that I was speaking of before. Awesome. I see another question here. I think that I should provide a service to my audience and not charge them for my content. Any flaws in my thinking? You know what? I think it's always great to have a variety of content sources or content types. So I have some freebies that I have, right? But then I also have some paid offerings as well. I love to provide an abundance of value. So I think providing so much value by way of the freebie and then leading them to maybe an extended version or maybe an in-depth overview for the paid content. But I don't think there's a flaw in your thinking. I think you can do them all. You can have some free resources so folks can get a feel of like, who is this person? Do I like them? Do I like their teaching style? And then charge them for the premium content. Absolutely. Oh, okay. This question: what mistakes have you learned the hard way about newsletters? Well, I will say, I think over emailing your email list can definitely be something that you don't want to do. So I would say trying to figure out what cadence. If you have a newsletter, that might be a question you ask folks, like, how often do you want to see emails from me? And that way you can segment your email list. Mhm. I thought I heard something on the back end there. You can segment your email list and send them emails based on how often they want to hear from you. I would also say not adding too many pictures or links in the emails. That's something else I've learned in my years of doing email management. Let's see. What are some must haves in a survey? As far as the must haves, I think it really does depend on your market. So, like I just keep using the hot sauce business. Let me look at some of the others here. But for Rebecca, for instance, I would say that, understanding who your local businesses are or like the location of your audience, that would be really key because maybe you want to get your hot sauce into some of the local businesses. If you figure out where your audience lives and you know that they resonate with you and they enjoy your product, you can then go to that area and maybe ship them some of your goods so that you know that you'll have support in that area. So I think understanding who you're serving is really key before you think about what survey questions to ask. But the 7 questions that I shared with you, I think those are great questions just to kind of begin with in general, like depending on no matter what your business is. Now, for podcasting, for instance, one of the key questions that my co host and I ask is how long do you listen to the podcast, right? Do you listen to like 100% of our episodes from start to finish? Do you listen to 80%? And asking a question like that is really helpful for advertisers because if someone wants to purchase, let's say, a mid roll for our podcast, they can be confident in knowing that folks are going to listen to that episode. They listen at least until the halfway mark. And so it makes sense for them to get a mid roll. But if the data point says, folks only listen to the midway point and they cut off the podcast, then they may not want to purchase a post roll ad, if that makes sense. So I think knowing your audience is really key when it comes to figuring out what survey questions to ask. I love this. So you own the first Black fragrance house in the US. Amazing. Congratulations. And you're always looking for ways to add value to your current and future clients. I love that. I love, like, if you have a small business as well, I think hopping on the phone with your audience is to, I mean, if you have the bandwidth, hop on the phone with folks, get to know them, like really understand the makeup of that person. Because once you hop on a few calls, let's say you hop on like 10 to 15 calls, and you understand that there's like a theme across that avatar, it allows you to serve the larger audience. So I love that. I love that business idea. Any other questions? I'm just taking a look at the chat, just scrolling through to see if I see anything else here. I see that Canva is fantastic. Canva is a great tool, absolutely. All right, I don't see any other questions here. How can we find out why people buy from us? The answer to that question is super simple. I would say ask them. Ask them why they buy from you. And if you find that, oh yeah, if you find that, you're not getting a good answer from one person, I mean, just you can post it on social media as your status. You can post it on Twitter as a status as well. I think just putting the questions out there is so key because people like to share generally, right? They want to talk about themselves. They like to talk about their experiences. Now, as far as breaking down the revenue streams, absolutely. I am a huge fan of hashtag multiple streams of income. Okay. So some of my favorite income streams would include one, podcasting. I think podcasting is great because we can advertise to our audience. So I don't want to jump into it too much, but I have like a book, right? So when I launched my book last year, I was able to promote that to my audience. So the podcast just opens you up. It allows you to connect deeply with your audience too, so that when you do go to sell to your audience, it's not a hard sell. It's like they already listen to you on a weekly basis, right? We release our podcast every week. And so it's easier for them to make the decision to buy from you. So I offer my book or advertise my book on the podcast, but then we also have sponsors on the podcast that we offer to our audience. I would also include online courses. I have several online courses teaching folks how to start podcasts, how to build their brands, how to increase their social media following. And so that's another revenue stream. Digital products are my absolute favorite. I have a little workshop or masterclass on how to use Canva. I have a monetization masterclass. So that's another. And then also public speaking. So before, the world really shut down because of COVID, I would fly out and speak at different colleges and universities and conferences. So those are just a few examples of revenue streams. My co-host and I are also getting into merchandise, and so that'll be something else for us. And the thing about having multiple streams is that if one stream dries up, right? So if you, let's say, were hosting live events, but then COVID happened, and you're like, okay, we can't meet in person. Well, you have your virtual summits, right? Like Billo, or you have your book, or you have your merchandise. So there are other ways for folks to uh, buy from you when one income stream dries up. Great question there.